now like to pass you on to Zoe, who will tell you her phenomenal story and her experiences within the trades.
Hi everyone, I'm Zoe. I'm a scaffolder in Christchurch, so I've been doing this for 7 years, mostly full-time, sometimes part-times. I basically got into scaffolding because my dad's a scaffolder, and I did my degree at University of Canterbury 2014, and it had nothing to do with the trade industry. It was just a degree in sociology, but I had a huge student loan to pay, and we were sort of coming out of just sort of in the middle of the rebuild in Christchurch. And I thought, well, this might be a really good way to pay off some of my student loan and do something that isn't sitting down behind a computer, which I'd been doing for 3 years at that point. So I started scaffolding and basically didn't stop. I then decided to go back to university in 2019 to look at women in the trade industry sort of at a deeper level. And the reason why I decided to do this was because after spending 5 years full-time scaffolding, I started to realize there was some pretty significant inequalities and some pretty significant barriers for women in the industry. And I thought, has anyone looked into this? Like, what's been done about this? How can we make change in the industry? How can we sort of open up the industry to women, increase visibility, increase awareness about the industry? I certainly know that at secondary school, we never had no careers advisory around careers and trades. And I thought this is such a huge opportunity that schools are missing out on. And I sort of fell into it because of family. It wasn't something that I just chose or thought was a viable option for me, certainly not after uni or after school. So I went back to uni, did that honours degree in women that work on the tools, and I really felt like I opened a can of worms. I ended up interviewing 3 women, professional women in trades, who had a minimum of 2 years experience working on the tools, and I interviewed them for around an hour and a half each, and it just sort of blew the lid off. I couldn't have predicted what I didn't predict what came out. And I sort of had information overload, and I had to contain it because my word limit was pretty small. But I thought, oh my gosh, I need to do something with this. So I hooked up with women in trade. I emailed them, explained the research that I'd done, and said that I wanted to get involved, and I felt really passionate about getting definitely more visibility. And I really believe that you can't be what you can't see. And that is an enormous part of, like Kylie said, and Dash said as well, that's an enormous part of getting more women into the industry. So that's something that I really, really, really care about, because I really believe that women can do anything in the industry. It is entirely available to them. They just don't see that it's available to them. And we can change that. And we can also change the way men think about women in the industry. And this is why I really care about this topic, because I think we all have I think everyone has the right to be in the industry. And I think we are in a really particular time at the moment, especially post-COVID, where we aren't having as many people coming in on working visas into the trade industry. There's an enormous opportunity, like after the Christchurch earthquakes, for women to enter the industry. After the earthquakes in Christchurch, there was an enormous increase of women in the trade industry as a result of their jobs being affected more poorly than men's jobs overall. And they were an untapped resource, and they managed to start entering the industry. But one of the problems that we have actually isn't necessarily getting women in, but it's retaining women in the industry. So women do enter the industry, but the industry sort of spits them out. So what we've got to work on is, how can we support women in the industry? And this is something that I think women in trade have an enormous capacity to do. And that's why I'm here today, to talk about that. And yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And I'll just add the speakers back so we can have a quick round of discussion. One second. Yes, thank you, Zoe, for sharing your experiences, and I think that's so inspiring. To women, to men, to everyone. Because I think we all face our different sets of challenges, and also, it takes courage to rise up, and help others. and think for others, and that's a very lovely thing that you're doing for the community. So thank you, Zoe, for all that you do and inspire others. I will quickly, before we set the scene open for a Q&A, there's some myths that we have around this construction sector, and particularly with regard to women working in trades. So I'll just throw open to our experts, and let's see who wants to catch this. So one of the big myths that we have is that construction isn't an option for women. So why would women want to do construction? So what do you want to say on that, Zoe?
I would say that that's a crazy misconception. And like I was mentioning before, that is a result of an enormous lack of visibility in the industry. So because there's, like I said before, you can't see what you can't be. So if you don't see women in these roles, you don't think that it's something women can do, and you don't think it's something that women should do. And unfortunately, employers that tend to be men feel the same way. So they are more likely to hire people that they believe fit those roles. And at the moment, the people that we think fit those roles are men, because men have a lot of visibility in the industry. And another reason why women think it isn't an option for them is secondary schools and careers advisory. Women are much, much, much more pushed into going to university and studying at Polytech. And unfortunately, the trade industry is often seen as a pathway for unacademic young men. And instead of them leaving school and not doing anything, or leaving school and not going to university, they tend to be the people that are pushed into these roles. So I think there's a huge opportunity in schools, definitely, to have a bit more education around the benefits of the trade industry. And I think if that was aimed at young women, it would largely increase interest and most likely increase participation in the trade industry. Because once you go to university and study, why would you then go into a trade? It's sort of something that needs to happen earlier on. So I think why women think it's not an option for them is obviously it's a male-dominated industry that's perpetuated in stereotypes in employment, men employing young men more than they employ women, and women not putting themselves forward for those roles as well, because they don't see themselves in those roles and they don't think it's an appropriate place for them. So I think this is a really big, but it's ridiculous. Everyone has a right to feel welcome. Everyone has a right to equality in the industry, and there are women in the industry. They just aren't necessarily seen.
Yeah. I'd like to add as well that a lot of it also sits with solo status. Zoe could be the only female on site, and so it's quite a daunting place to be if you're the only female on site. So that sometimes can mean a lot of women choose not to do it, or maybe look for a job that they won't be the only female that's around. So that's really significant. And there are a lot of programs at the moment trying to promote the trades to women. I know Connexus do Girls with High Vis. I've had some of my students go to Women in Infrastructure. There's lots of different things, but your average age for an apprentice is around about 27 or 29. And so, we do need to kind of promote it a lot earlier, as Zoe said, but also even earlier than secondary schools, because gender socialization means that often by the age of 5 or 6, young girls are going, this is a job for females, this is a job for men, or, and young boys, to be fair, as well. And so they're already making up those decisions. And one of the things that I quite often will say to people who say, what do I do? And it's like, well, actually, do you talk about your job? You're in construction. Do you talk to your nieces and nephews about the construction industry? Do you have that conversation? Because quite often we hold the key. We are the people who can say, this is my job and it's really cool. And I saw a female digger driver on site and she was phenomenal and she did this. And it's those kind of conversations that we need to have all the time, and not the, oh, look, there's a female on site kind of thing, but it's just look who's on site, those kind of conversations. So it does start a lot younger. We need to work on that. But as Zoe said, we just need to make it more visible, but we do also need to work with employers
Yes.
to get them to realize that it's not, they don't have to buy a whole new toilet suite for females. They don't have to do all of this stuff, but they need to have a conversation, and they need to open their minds to the fact that just because they haven't hired someone who looks and sounds and acts like them from the school that they came from doesn't mean that they're not getting quality. So it's changing a lot of mindsets in society and within industry.
And no, and that's such an amazing thing and insight. And I would just want, I was just tempted to draw parallels to the corporate sector. Maybe 20 years ago, and maybe even 25 years ago, I don't know, it was a mindset that women are never the managers or the CEOs. I think the construction sector is going through that same phase, and now it's common. In fact, there are more women at the CEO level and the managerial level. So I think it's all yes, as a thing in the mind, and it's something like and definitely forums like ours, and the good work that Women in Trades does. These forums are so important to push gender diversity and into these roles. So let's go to the next myth, and which also generally about construction work, people say that it's generally very easy and boring, or it's not intellectually stimulating work. And so what's your take on this? And maybe Kylie, you can take it, and then yeah.
I think Zoe could probably speak to this a bit more, having been in the industry, but I've interviewed as part of various research projects that I've been involved in, probably over 50 women who are in the trades. And the one thing that they will say to me is, no day is the same. You don't know what you're gonna come across. One day you could be trying to figure out how many bits of equipment that you need to build a certain thing. The next day you're damage control because there was loads of rain the night before. There is no 2 days the same. So it's never boring. There's never a dull moment. And you just need to keep on your toes. And Dash talked earlier about health and safety, and he was talking in terms of drugs, but you're working in an industry that is actually there's many, many, many moving parts, and you have to have your wits about you. And if it was easy and boring, there would be significant number of workplace accidents. So you have to be really good at problem solving. You have to be really good at just being really aware of what different people are doing around you to keep yourself safe. Yeah. And also, that whole lifting situation, you have to be physically strong to lift something. A lot of women that I've interviewed have really enjoyed the fact that they've had to think just a little bit more, because they have to figure out how to lift something where they have different types of strength. And I interviewed a stonemason, and that's what she said. She was like, actually, the best part about my job was trying to figure out how I'm going to lift these headstones to get them to where they needed to be, when I didn't have the strength, or I didn't have someone working with me. So, it's never a dull day. Sorry, Dash, I think I talked over you there.
No. I was just going to add something before Zoe speaks from real experience. I was just going to say, even the jobs that many think of as traditional construction work, such as bricklaying or scaffolding, they still require a number of advanced skills, like to get stuff done. Working in the field is still your problem solving creatively and ability to make quick decisions and working under pressure at the same time. These are the traits that you would find in any job. So I don't see how that's different for working in construction. It's actually quite similar to what skills you need, and topping it up with just working outside doesn't make this industry boring or easy. It's actually, the work is carried outside as opposed to you working as an admin officer, for example, and inside the office. I just wanted to add on that. So Zoe, please.
Yeah.
If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. It's not easy. And I think definitely what Kylie said before, day to day, you just don't know what you're going to deal with. You need to be able to problem solve. You need to be able to work with other trades, because working in construction and the trade industry is about working with other trades. So for a builder, that could be straightening walls and getting roof trusses done so that the roofers can come in and put the roof on. And that's all got to be done right? So it's about working in with other people. And because of that, you're working with an enormous variety of people on a day-to-day basis. Each of those people have different ways of working, different ways of communicating, and it keeps things interesting. It is not boring. It is very interesting. And you meet fascinating people who have interesting backgrounds, who do different jobs, and you actually learn about other trades while you're in your own trade because you're working with so many other people. And you're generally constantly working in different places, whether that's on the same site, but on different parts of the building, or you're going site to site. And that keeps things interesting. You're not in one place all day, having your lunch break, coming back to your office. So it's not boring. It's not boring at all. And
very dynamic.
Something else about it is that you have to battle with the environment, with the weather. It's not boring.
Oh yeah,
it is not boring.
She loves it. She loves it.
You just made me feel my job is so boring. Okay, so I'll think about it.
Career change time, Gary.
Yeah. So and so that takes me to my next myth buster, that also people think that the career in construction is only for people who aren't smart or not very book savvy or not academic. So what about that? And sometimes it might be a genuine thing. For example, if it's someone who's interested in the sector but more interested in the maybe on the academic or the number side of things or whatever, so what are the options there? So maybe Dash, if you want to answer that.
There are plenty of smart people in construction, man. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
I'll be honest here. While many positions in this field don't require a college degree per se, but almost all require continuous training. Workers must regularly take tests or recertifications or any sort of qualifications in-house to stay up to date on the regulations and the latest equipments or attachments to, or advancements, sorry. In saying that, like I mentioned before, jobs like engineers or architects, they require a great degree of high level and thinking and analysis, and numerous opportunities for apprenticeships and entrepreneurship, for example, what Zoe is doing, exists as well. So while the myth out there is, you just can do this, anybody can do this job. Not really, because this job does require a certain level of understanding, thinking, thought process of getting things done in orderly fashion.
Yes, true. And also another big the obvious thing that people, the first thing that comes into people's mind when they say construction sector is hard labor. Then people think that and especially people from migrant communities, a lot of people who come from India or the Indian subcontinent region, in their DNA they're generally not that the built up is not that much, and so they are a little scared of, even they know that there are jobs in this sector, but they are little scared. The first thing they come, oh, I'm not made for it. So what would you say to them?
I always when I talk to people about it, I always talk about the example of, a lot of females go into nursing. And within nursing, if you think about it, you need to be able to move patients, some of which are fighting against you. There is a level of strength that's required in a traditionally female-dominated space like nursing. And when you go into it, you don't have that strength and you build it. You get kind of job fit in a way. And all the tradeswomen that I've spoken to are exactly the same. They've gone into it and they've said, it was hard, but I had to build up my muscles. But actually, after I'd been doing it for a while, I had that job-specific fitness. So, I'm a teacher, and going into the classroom after the summer holidays, I'm shattered by the end of the first week because I'm doing things that I haven't done before. So we all have to have that job-specific training. So that's one of the things I say. And also the amount of technology that's come into play. There are so many different lifts and hoists, things like that just make the job easier. One of the tradeswomen that I interviewed often said to me, what I can't lift, guys shouldn't be lifting for health and safety laws. So there's actually so much in there that it's, if that's a job for you and you really want to do it, that is not a barrier. It's just your perception. Would you agree, Zoe?
Yeah, and something I would say about that as well is a lot of heavy lifting in the industry is technique based. It's not necessarily strength based.
Okay.
So certainly with scaffolding, if you know what you're doing, it's not that hard. It's not that heavy. But like Kylie mentioned, it is a building up. You do have to build into it, but so do men.
Yeah. So
But there are also other jobs in this industry that require no physical labor at all.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
So you have admin workers, you have people working in the
Exactly.
offices.
But you can also choose trades according to your physical capacity. So if you know that you're a bit smaller and you don't have that skill set of being strong, that's okay. You can get into jobs like being a painter. Painters don't do an enormous amount of heavy lifting, nowhere near as much as block layers or builders. And that's still a trade, and that's still a really interesting trade.
Yeah.
That if and there's so many trades. Like when in your presentation, Dash, you mentioned like an enormous range of opportunities in the industry, and so many of those do not require much heavy lifting.
Yep.
So
basically,
it's about finding the job that's right for you as well.
Yeah, correct. And that's a very good, idea that you've given, that, it's not. So basically, if I want to put it in a humorous way, I would say you're not signing up to be a weightlifter, right? So this is a job. This is not weightlifting we're talking about. Yes. And like you rightly said, lot of different set of skills are required. And also another good point, you said that there's a lot of automation and new techniques that have come in the market, which definitely requires more your brain power and not just your okay. So I'll move on to our next one, where people say that construction work is for people who don't have other career options. So like, I think Zoe, you touched upon that earlier, that how it has been ingrained that if a person is not going to university, so you should do this. So is that changing, and how true or false is that?
I haven't been at school for a really long time, so I don't know if that's changing. I would think probably not very much, but in regards to that, I would say that is an absolute myth, that people don't aspire to be in the trades. I think a lot of people do not aspire to go to university, but that's what they feel like they're supposed to do, so they do it. But why would you put yourself through a degree sitting in a library, typing behind a computer, when you can literally get straight into a job, working outdoors, earning money, working with other people, going place to place every day, feeling like an adult actually working? Why? I don't believe that people don't aspire to be in the trades.
Yeah.
I think, like you mentioned just then, it's the idea that, I'm supposed to go to university. NCEA is structured in a way that sets you up to go to university. You're not doing woodworking. Well, I never did woodwork at school, or learning about how to wire up electricity at school. And because those things aren't taught in school, weren't when I was at school, it makes you think that that's not a valuable step forward, I think. And you think that what you're taught in school is what you ought to be continuing with. So I think people do aspire to it, but I would say that they're probably often talked out of it, or felt that it's not what they should be doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I'd say about that.
Yeah.
I think Kylie could cover more.
I think that's also, some of that comes from whānau as well. We've got to remember the power of your family. And often that is an aspiration of many parents. I know somewhere, those BCITO ads where the young the boy was like, no, I'm not going to go to uni, I'm going to go into trade. And it's quite a dramatic ad. Whereas I actually know someone who lived and breathed that, where their son had to sit them down and say, look, I know you want me to go to university, but I want to go and get a trade. This is my career. And it's really unfortunate, because, people go, I want to go into law. And everyone goes, oh, you could go so many different ways. You could do this, and this, and this, and this. Whereas when people say, oh, I want to be a builder, it's like, oh, and think you're going to be a builder for the next 40 years and ruin your back and all of that kind of stuff. And it's just not true. You know, it's an absolute pathway. It's a qualification. And once you get that qualification, you can go so many different directions. And, you know, a lot of people for project management jobs, they would love someone who's been on the tools because they can understand what's going on, as opposed to, you know, that kind of understand it from a perspective, but not actually a practical putting it together kind of perspective.
Yeah. Just adding something else towards in the mindset area, people are drawn to the industry for various reasons. Some enjoy hands-on work, some enjoy technology, you know, whatever the reason is. People work in construction because they enjoy it, not because they couldn't find work anywhere else. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger was a construction worker once, right? he did all this because he enjoyed doing hands-on work. I'm not saying because he's been a weightlifter, but he enjoyed being in the industry. So far, he actually owned a company in the business as well. So it's just a matter of choice, not a matter of I can't go in anything else, so I'll go into construction.
I think one other thing I'll say about that is going to university, especially these days in this climate, does not guarantee you a job, particularly in the field that you choose to study in. Whereas if you're training in a trade, you are training in the job that you are doing and you're getting paid to study, basically. Yep. So that is another motivator why people choose that as a career option.
There's so many management graduates who are searching for jobs for years. And yeah, very valid point. Yeah, from day one, you are in the job. Yeah. And also one very good point which you said is that, you know, so I know, for example, there are a few migrants who are engineers back in India or have that qualification, and they are finding it difficult to get into the sector here. So would you recommend them to start at a, you know, maybe at a junior level, or maybe start with the tools like you're saying, so that they learn the, you know, tricks of the trade as they go?
That is one way to go. I think that is a huge concern of the industry, that people so qualified can't get work when there is such a shortage. I think there's another concern there, but absolutely, you know, getting on the tools is a sort of a stepping stone into the industry, and it really does give you, you know, if you've got knowledge in the construction industry and people see it and you're committed and you're enthusiastic and you get stuck in and all of that, you'll go far because people will see that. And there are so many shortages within the industry that people are going to go, this person's got talent, let's get them moving. I know I interviewed a lady who she was doing her electrical apprenticeship. She started an apprenticeship at 40. So age is never a barrier as well. So let's, you know, bust that myth. I know it wasn't even on the list, but let's bust that myth now. Age is definitely not a barrier. But she had a career beforehand. She was actually a researcher from within universities. And she came in with previous knowledge of obviously computer systems and things like that. Her employer saw that and very quickly kind of pulled her in on different meetings. So, you know, it is definitely a potential stepping stone. And I think that's a great idea.
So basically what you're saying is cross skills also help, and you can transfer your skills
100%
to the sector.
Yeah.
So that's also very key.
Yeah.
And especially
Yeah.
valid today, because due to COVID, a lot of people have been rendered jobless and searching for new careers, you know, which can instant money. And you know, okay, that's good. Maybe we'll have that discussion again in the Q&A.